Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. This webinar is being presented by Clean Energy Group, and the topic for today's webinar is Mobile Solar and Storage, Emergency Response in New Orleans with the first Beehive Microgrid. The date today is August 18th, 2026, and we have an excellent panel of guest speakers with us today. But before I pass it over to them, I'd like to go over a few webinar logistics. All attendees are in listen-only mode, so your webcam and microphone are disabled. The chat function is also disabled, so if you would like to submit questions and comments, you can do so via the Q&A panel. We'll be saving about 15 to 20 minutes at the end of the presentations to address audience questions, so please submit your questions throughout the webinar and we will get to them at the end. Automated captions are available with the CC button. Speaker bios will be made available in the chat as they're being introduced. And finally, this webinar is being recorded. We will email you the webinar recording within 48 hours, and it will also be posted on CEG's website at cleanegroup.org/webinars. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to our host for today, my colleague, Marriele Mango.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining. I am Marriele Mango, Senior Project Director at Clean Energy Group. Before I hand it over to our awesome panelists, I was just going to do a quick overview of Clean Energy Group. Clean Energy Group advocates for affordable, reliable, clean energy for all. Work in a bunch of different buckets from education and awareness building, like this webinar, to varying degrees of publications from 101 resources to more heavy-duty techno-economic analyses. I really encourage you to check out our website, underlying really the equitable advancement of solar and battery storage. Next slide, please. This webinar today is brought to you by the Resilient Power Project. The Resilient Power Project focuses on advancing solar and battery storage in historically underserved communities, whether that's behind the meter or community solar and storage options, or encouraging participation in renewables in general. These are some of our partners listed here, including Footprint, who's on the webinar today. Next slide, please. Wanted to highlight the Technical Assistance Fund because Clean Energy Group operates this program and has operated it for over 11 years now, although it looks slightly different today. And it had supported Footprint Project in developing this project by Footprint Project or partners in developing mobile solar and storage resources through small grant funding and one-on-one support to ensure folks can get their foot in the door and actually start building these projects through development and pre-development resources. Next slide, please. Great. And today we're really focusing on the Beehive Microgrid model. We have a case study that was published a couple weeks ago. It's available on our website. The link's here. It's a great deep dive. It's not too wonky, and it's a good, I think, first step in understanding how these systems get off the ground and how this model was built. Next slide, please. Great. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Nate Heegaard, who's the Associate Director of Technology at Footprint Project. Take it away, Nate.
Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Am I good? All right. To meet everyone, thanks Marriele, thanks CEG Group for putting this webinar together. I'm going to talk. My name is Nate Heegaard. I'm the Associate Director of Technology at Footprint Project. Footprint Project is a 501c3 nonprofit org based in Louisiana, where our headquarters is. We also have an office in Asheville, North Carolina, which we opened recently about a year ago after our Hurricane Helene response in Western North Carolina. Our mission is to build back greener after disasters by mobilizing cleaner energy infrastructure to communities in crisis. We've been around since 2000, well, officially 2018, and we have responded to over 30 climate-driven disasters across the country, now the Caribbean and Central South America. We actually have a team on the ground right now in Venezuela, and deploying mobile solar and battery generators to communities without power. So I'm here to talk about a little bit about the concept of the Beehive, and then the other panelists, Jeff and Todd, are going to get into the details on the first microgrid Beehive that we established here in New Orleans. But here is the preliminary layout. This was a concept that was developed out of our Hurricane Ida response in Louisiana in 2021. And then, as Marriele touched on, I believe we published an original concept note in 2023 in partnership with the Clean Energy Group. Here are just some fun photos of the construction of what came to be our first official bee. This was with the Groundwork crew, Todd's crew, in 2022 in the parking lot of the Gentilly site where the first Beehive Microgrid was established. As you can see, it's a cargo trailer with batteries and power electronics mounted on the inside, solar panels mounted on the roof with sold out solar wings that can roll. It has inlets and outlets, so it can roll up and power equipment when a disaster strikes. So what actually is a bee and a beehive? Well, a Beehive microgrid is a dynamic system of rapidly deployable mobile energy assets that addresses both disaster response and long-term resilience for vulnerable communities. It's a flexible, customizable network that consists of a centralized semi-permanent hive and numerous bees. Bees with different configurations and functionalities. Some have,
Nate,
yeah.
you're cutting out a little bit, so if you wouldn't mind turning your camera off just to improve the audio quality.
I'm sorry about that. I'm actually sitting in one of our shipping container bees that we just recently upgraded the internet to, and I hope it works. Is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to get my presentation notes. Let's see. Back and check screen. Okay, am I back on there?
Yeah.
I apologize for that. Yeah, so bees are mobile solar and battery powered units with different configurations and functionalities. Some have water filtration equipment, some offer cold storage and cooling, and others are packed full of batteries for maximum power capabilities. Most bees are also designed to carry what we call battery libraries, which is a set of smaller portable power stations that can charge from a bee. These can get distributed out into the community to power CPAPs, fans, fridges, power tools, chest freezers. Hives are the hubs with large renewable power generation capacity that offers standalone and backup power for operations, and where bees can come to charge up in between deployments. The Beehive equipment ecosystem includes technology from various types and sizes with the objective to aid disaster-affected communities with a range of climate survival technologies as a service when needed the most, when and where they're needed the most. The Beehive model is adapting. It has adapted over the years, and what a bee is and what a hive is also continually evolving as the technology evolves. We've learned a lot since 2023 when we established the first beehive in New Orleans with Groundwork and Solar Alternatives. And right now we are currently working on a Beehive microgrid network in North Carolina with federal funding through the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. Early this spring, we published 2 RFPs, which are requests for proposals, one for a new set of bees and another for a set of hives. We received proposals that included a wide range of innovative microgrid technology and sustainable energy infrastructure, and are currently in the process of procuring the first prototypes. It has also forced us to answer some real questions regarding all of this new innovative technology that's out there that seems to come out by the day, and the constraints and limitations it has in real world disaster response environments, such as logistics and transportation of the equipment, how the equipment works in different geographical locations and terrains and weather conditions, different temperatures, etc. A few months ago, back in June, we hosted a demo of the first round of procurements, which included 2 trailer bees you see on the left and the right there, and what we're calling cooler container bees behind, next to the building with the solar panels. They are 10 by 20 foot shipping containers for cold storage that food can be placed in, that they're powered, and these containers are powered by solar panels that are permanently mounted to the containers and able to fold in and out. And the batteries, which you can't see, but those are in the back on the sides of the shipping containers. So those right now are stationed at the Manna Food Bank, which is one of the largest food banks in North Carolina. But they can also be moved around if need be. There is an up close shot of one of our newest bees. It's a solar trailer with some new branding that we have. You can see there we have solar panels on the top. The batteries and all the power electronics are on the inside. And that is one of our staff members, Kat, doing the demo to a group of folks there. She's our Western North Carolina program recovery manager. And she's explaining what the bee can do, what it can power. We can hook up auxiliary solar, so it can actually, it's capable of accepting additional solar power through those ground mounted solar arrays. If there's space to mount solar panels in the place it's deployed, it's powering that chest freezer below there, and it's also powering a Starlink. So how do we select the Beehive sites? I just wanted to talk a little bit about finally how the process has evolved and where we put this equipment and who takes care of it. So we, through a lot of conversation and discussion with community members and partners, we developed a criteria and score that we call the depth of impact score and the breadth of impact score. The depth of impact score is if the power goes down at the site, how deeply does that impact the community it serves? This is a scale of 1 to 5. 1 would be primarily inconvenience. It has limited critical function and impact, such as like an administrative office or a parking facility, then all the way up to 5, which is, the loss of power is immediately life-threatening. This would be like an ambulance dispatch, a fire station, a search and rescue, or medical clinic. And then the breadth of impact score is also a score on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being the site has a very limited population, with minimal spillover to the broader community resilience. There's multiple accessible alternatives that exist that can reasonably meet the same need. Then all the way up to 5, where if power goes, the site serves as a primary or sole access point for critical services across a large geographic area and provides regional multi-jurisdictional significance. The impact extends across multiple vulnerable populations, such as low income, elderly, the disability, rural and marginalized communities. And the facility functions as a hub for indirect reach through supplies, communication, training, regional coordination. Examples of this would include such sites like rural hospitals, regional shelters, aid distribution centers, emergency response hubs, and other remote medical clinics. So that's just a little bit of a rundown on the Beehive concept, where we started, how it's developed, what the new Beehive we're working on right now in North Carolina. And I will pass it over to, I think it's Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, are you there?
Got kicked out for a moment though. I'm going to go ahead and share. Serene, am I good to go? And looks like Zoom restarted on me.
I'm not seeing your slides right now.
Mhm.
Looks good.
Good to go. All right, everybody. Sorry about that. Zoom restarted right as it was switching over to me. But my name is Jeff Canton, Solar Alternatives. We're a local engineering and construction group out of New Orleans. Serve most of the Gulf South. We're licensed in 9 states, and we do a lot of work in energy storage and solar and microgrids in the sense of permanent installations, but we also do occasional mobile installations such as this. And so we're excited to work with Clean Energy Group and Footprint and Groundwork and many other organizations in the region to really respond to disaster response, to disaster events, and even just training, education. There's so much that these resources can be used for. Really with the leadership of groups like Footprint, Clean Energy Group, and Groundwork, and other groups like Lighthouse Project and the region, they've really been able to take what we consider a great technology and turn it into a great resource for the community. In that all of the information, the knowledge that we have seen just as engineers and builders over the last 15, 18 years that we've been in business, having these systems working so well, they've been able to help turn that into something where the whole community gets to benefit from the resources of really unlimited power, right? The ability to get energy whenever you need it from these sources day after day without having to go run around and find fuel. The important part is to manage the loads carefully. And so when you have groups like Footprint that deploy these into the field and Groundwork increasingly that are bringing these into the field to help communities, understanding how they work and what they can do and what they can't do, helps go a really long way towards making the technology both accessible and really practical, something that really proves out the benefit of it. So I'm going to talk for a little bit about how the work came together, how the design came together. What we do is talk to groups like Groundwork and Footprint and say, okay, what are you trying to do? How do we take your vision? How do we take your ideas, even if it's sketched on the back of a napkin or drawn out in a preliminary way? We'll take those set of ideas and say, let's see what we can really do with existing technology. Let's see what can be reliable, robust, meet your needs, meet your budget. And sometimes we have to pivot. In this case, as Nate pointed out, we started off with the idea of a permanent installation and said, you know what, this makes a lot more sense. After talking to Todd and folks, it just makes a lot more sense to put in a mobile format to where we can take it. We can both use it at the existing facility, but also take it somewhere to be able to help a different type of community and move the hive, so to speak, where it might be needed most. And that pivot, it wasn't too hard, but it definitely took some adjustments in the specifications and engineering. And we're gonna talk for a minute about just the overall picture of the systems, but I do want to look at the equipment itself and the design documents to just give an idea of how the technical side of these projects come together. This system ends up being permanent power of 10 kilowatts. And so you've got an array on that mobile trailer we just saw a moment ago. of about 7 or 8 kilowatts of power that's permanently installed there. That unit is also, just jump back for a second, that unit is also designed to actually have pallets of panels stored underneath it when it travels, so that you have a permanent array, but you also have an array that can be opened up and spread into a field as needed to add more power. So it's 10 kilowatts DC in its base size, but it gets up to 38 kilowatts designed in the system that we can deploy as needed. And the energy storage, the existing unit right now has 54 kilowatt hours, and that actually can be expanded, I believe, to one more battery in the future if needed. And the power in the system combined is about 20 kilowatts of inverter power. And we'll see some images of the inside of the trailer and some of the plans as well. But the overall specifications allow the system to be expandable, so that if you have more than one B hooked up to it, if you're powering more than one load, you can increase the ability for the unit to charge and to distribute power a bit better. So, our role again was to take all the different specifications, draft some concepts, draft the budget, adjust that a couple times as things pivoted, and then finalize the designs, do the procurement, do the engineering, construction, and then the training of the unit as well. Just a quick snapshot of the system designs. The way the two mobile units come together, it's one that has all the inverters, the batteries, the charge controllers on it, and then is really, we consider the power unit, the storage unit, and that's where all of the energy that comes from the solar gets stored and converted and distributed. The equipment in there is a little bit sensitive, and so there's also an air conditioner attached to that unit. So it's basically a cooled mobile storage and power trailer. And it's designed to have other equipment inside of it. So it's a fairly heavy-duty trailer by itself, and it's designed to be both expandable and provide other storage and purpose inside of it besides just the equipment. The solar trailer, the charging trailer, as it's effectively purposed, is essentially a permanent tilted array of solar panels on a flatbed trailer it's permanently fixed in a way that can be transported, but it also can store those modules that you can see for deployment underneath, along with some racking. And it also is meant to be something that's long term. The equipment we used on that is off the shelf. It's made for actually ground arrays, but we used it to permanently install it on that trailer so that it can be replicable pretty easily over time if the group wanted to make multiple versions of that. And so we'll look at those plans in just a moment. But one important aspect when you're building these systems too is the monitoring of the units, because it's very important to know if your batteries are healthy, if your inverters are producing the power they're supposed to, if the charging from the solar is happening as it's supposed to. So there's a lot of moving parts. You need a little bit of a dashboard. You need to be able to see a little red light if something's going wrong. And in the modern systems, the way you do that is through notifications and monitoring apps. Every one of the systems out there, the Fortresses, the Franklins, the Enphase, the Teslas, the Schneider in this case, all have monitoring applications that can work remotely. This one happens to be Wi-Fi connected, but it's just as well to attach a cellular modem to it, so it could be monitored remotely from anywhere. But those monitoring functions are incredibly important, and having the ability both for the end user for Groundwork, and then for us, the maintenance firm, to be able to help them remotely is really important. So if you're deploying these systems out there, having a monitoring function within it is really important. Just depends on what kind of internet access you're going to have and what kind of functions you need to be able to do remotely. So overall, it is a system designed to be expandable. It's meant to be something maintained in part by the Groundwork team, so something the end user can maintain, keep it clean, keep it basic servicing. But we'll go through it once a year, like a technical firm, to basically check the equipment, check that the connections are good, and that everything is operating normally, and be able to respond in the, if the system is in the field and needs help, we can respond remotely or we can send somebody out to support it if needed. I'm going to bring up real quick the plans we've got for it. And so you saw some snapshots of those plans, but it's important. I think, engineers always love to look at plans, but it's important to look at the way these specifications come together, because you only, anytime you're designing a system like this, a set of beehives or to a specific purpose, you've got some constraints. You got a budget constraint, you have a space constraint. We can only put it in this big of a trailer. We have a certain type of equipment that has to be used. The panels either can be mounted on the same device or they have to be mounted separately. Or you can do, as Footprint often does, is spread a separate array out into a field using just tilt equipment for the field. So all those different specifications requirements come together and become your design parameters. And so in this case, we knew we needed to use lithium. We knew we needed a certain amount of power. We knew we had a set of equipment that was going to be available from one of the groups that was Schneider equipment was being provided by the manufacturer. It's a great set of equipment too, because it's also very reliable in an off-grid situation. So this is basically an off-grid power system, right? Like you have an off-grid cabin or house or something. When you're off-grid like this, Schneider's a very good set of equipment for that, and it's very robust over time. So we basically said, what space is available? Where can we put the equipment? How much power do they need? And what are the remaining pieces that we have to gather and plug together? So all this equipment works as one big system. The batteries, the charge controllers, the inverters, distribution, and even the inlets for the DC system. And there's panels mounted on this trailer. Even though there's a separate trailer, this trailer needs to be operated, be able to operate on its own. So it's got an air conditioner built in. We need to keep the batteries charged to run the AC. So the 2 kilowatts of panels that are on this array, 1.7 kilowatts, they help keep the AC running. And in New Orleans, it doesn't take very long for a trailer to get pretty hot. So all this comes together to build the power trailer. The solar trailer, the charging trailer was fairly straightforward in that we knew we had a certain amount of space in a certain size trailer that was going to be practical. And so the array was engineered around those constraints and the desire to be able to transport panels with that. So otherwise, the designs, the drawings that you need to be able to provide in a project like this really just tell the builder what exactly you want from it. So it's important to do the engineering so there's no question when you're looking at what you want out of a system and what's going to come from it. As Nate mentioned, you can buy a lot of these battery trailers now pre-made with certain specifications, but if you have a certain type of equipment that might be available to you, or if you have a certain set of specs that are just not built out there in pre-made formats, you can build these yourselves without essentially having to, do in a way, none of this work is extremely custom in that we're not using special equipment. This is all off-the-shelf equipment. It's just being assembled in a way that has a special purpose. So to take a quick glance at what looks like inside, this is the real inside of the Beehive. You can see the AC in the back, the charge controllers, the Fortress batteries, which are great, very robust batteries. The inverters on the right, which are the Schneider XWs, been around for 20 plus years. So this is a very robust, very powerful system that can be deployed almost anywhere to do charging for, I believe we determined up to about 8 or 10 bees could be charged from it. So it does have panels on the roof. Can't exactly see them from there, but all the equipment talks together and talks to its monitoring and is remotely accessible so that there's no surprises in the field. We'll be able to find out when something's wrong, and we'll be able to either service it remotely or dispatch a technician to help. So I think that's all I had. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. We can do questions at the end if that's all right.
Yep, questions at the end. Thanks so much. And we can pass it over to Todd. Everyone feel free to we've had some great questions thus far, and please keep feeling free to put them in the Q&A and we'll get to as many as we can.
Hold on 1 second, folks. My fault. What's going on here? And let us go. I'm sharing. Pardon me for the technical difficulties, and we'll have this straight in 1 second. Where's this shit at? Hold on 1 second, folks. Sorry about that. Present. Where is it doing? Present.
Todd, if you'd like me to share my screen, I've got your slides up here.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm having some technical difficulties here.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is Todd Reynolds. I'm the Executive Director of Groundwork New Orleans. Groundwork is an environmental youth workforce development program here in New Orleans. First, I'd like to say thank you to Nate and Jeff and the Footprint Project folks and the Solar Alternative Project folks and the Clean Energy Group. Without your support and willingness to adapt and move to the changing conditions of this project, it wouldn't have happened. So we are greatly appreciative. Next slide, please. So we've talked about the Beehive, but we've talked about the Beehive project and the actual bees. Groundwork met Footprint Project several years before, specifically after Hurricane Ida, where here locally we had lost over 19 of our community members due to long-term power outages, heat exhaustion, and other horrific events after Ida. We had a fledgling solar bench program, but we realized that we needed to do more to support our communities when these long-term power outages. So we were lucky enough to partner with the Footprint Project. They introduced us to these mobile units. And with them, we started in our workforce development program, working with them to design and install and create the first bee. Next slide, please. So we constructed the bees and we did the construction of the microgrid facility. Now this facility was actually funded through an EPA environmental justice grant, problem solving grant that Groundwork secured in 2022 for about $500,000 to build the microgrid and the microgrid site. What we wanted to do is not only make it a place where the community can come in times of power outages, but also make it a kind of live outdoor classroom. It is located on the campus of the Net Gentilly Net 2 High School. I was the former principal there, so we continue to work with students throughout the city in these schools. But we wanted to create a resilience hub space that was both power generating, cooler generating, food distribution. We wanted to also create a space that was warm and welcoming, that also has some stormwater management capability. So as you can see in these photos, this is the outdoor space where people can come. That building will be the cooling space where people can come and get cooled. It's all 100% solar powered through the major trailer. We have installed a backup system. As Jeff said, sometimes that big trailer and the big hive might need to be moved to help some other communities. So we've just installed a backup system inside this facility to make sure it continues to run in case that happens. Next slide, please. So why does solar resilience matter? Groundwork has been doing several resilience projects around New Orleans in certain communities. We have some great community partners. First and foremost, Dr. Angela Chalk, Health and Community Services. I believe she is on this call. We did a partnership and we created what's called the Vision to Reality Stormwater Management Park, which is on Claiborne Avenue. It boasts a 200-foot bioswale and a community green space that folks can come through, and also serves as a resilience hub in their neighborhood where people can come get power when we have those long-term power outages. As you can see, we wanted to really maximize the effect of the solar resilience. So not only can they charge their devices, but it lights up at night. It becomes a safe space for the community to use, all run 100% through solar battery backup systems. Next slide, please. So, like I said, these hubs located around the city, the one specifically here that we're talking about today, the Gentilly Resilience Hub, it is also an active daily use site also for the school. So they use it for outdoor classroom activities. Our green team, which is our youth program, and our ground crew program is based out of this the Gentilly site, where we manage all of our program activities, but we're moving more and more to all 100% solar resilience, solar battery backup systems for all our daily operations and also for all of our emergency operations and our equipment. Next slide, please. So a little bit of how us at a glance, we are a workforce development and environmental training program. So all of our work is done through our program participants. Of course, folks like the Footprint Project and Solar Alternatives, they do the high-end technical installs, but they allow our young folks to work alongside them to kind of learn the methodology. But when it comes to the actual physical construction of our sites and our programs, whether it be our solar benches, whether it be our resilience hubs or our mini resilience hubs, that is 100% done through our program participants and our supervisors that manage those participants. So we also, like I said, we do resilient power community hubs. We have several community hubs, small scale and large scale, around the city. We like to combine green infrastructure and stormwater management to all of our hubs, so we get multiple co-benefits from not only the electric or the power that is generated, but also stormwater management. We are our frequent storms here, our frequent power outages, our frequent flash flooding. We wanted to make sure that when we build these resilience hubs, that not only do they provide power, but they stay dry and they stay functional through the stormwater management capacity. And all of this is done through our workforce development pathways. Next slide, please. So as you can see, here's some shots of a young man. These are the ground crew, which is an acronym, Climate Resilient Environmental Workforce, and they do the majority of our work. They learn the concepts. We do a lot of carpentry. They do electrical work. They work with our electrician. He does the final, install, but they learn how to pull wire. They learn how circuit panels work. So they're getting exposed to multiple different disciplines as they work here with groundwork. They can actually rack and wire panels on different facilities. So they're very, very talented. And these young men, our program is slightly different. These young men have been with me for over 6 years. They started basically 6 years ago, and they are now my supervisors as we bring in the next crew of recruits that will get the same experience as these young men did over several years. Next slide, please. Once again, what the program delivers, first and foremost, like we always say, we don't like to do training for the sake of training. We want to be able to work with our communities, work with our community organizations to create and leave resilience assets in the community that the community can benefit from long term. So it's not just we're training and then off they go. We're making these partnerships with community groups to rectify and help mitigate whether it be stormwater flooding, whether it be power outages, whether it be lack of urban canopy. That's all involved in our program. So we definitely want to make sure that our young people are involved in that, but we definitely look to leave these resilience assets in our communities. Definitely job creation pathways. A lot of these young men we employ because we do several of these projects in-house, but we also work with our young men and women if they want to move to a different career, if there's other opportunities out there, we work with them. But finally, once again, we're leaving neighborhood assets that will serve these communities for years to come, especially in our high need resilience times here in New Orleans and across the South. Next slide, please. Kind of what's up with us next and what we're trying to do more. We do have what's called our Solar Power Eco Bench, and that was a project that we partnered up with Tulane University Small Center for Architecture, and they did the original design with our green team. These are set on several university campuses, several school campuses. One of the main functions is that they have a solar panel, and the seats have individual charging ports for cell phones for the students, laptops, and those things. Also has a green infrastructure component. The water falls off the roof and into that section in the back where native plants are growing in there to collect some stormwater management. They also come with a cellular weather station to collect data. Below is one of our mini hubs that is Healthy Community Services Urban Ag Oasis, with once again the premise being most of the projects start out as green infrastructure stormwater management projects. Then we add solar resilience to those projects, and these projects then become mini resilience hubs for these communities, along with our with the Beehive concept, which is if you can't get to us, we can get to you with our mobile trailers. But we're also doing these also mini hubs through green infrastructure installations around town. So serving multiple purposes. Next slide, please. So what we're looking to get into next, we definitely want to expand our solar resilience assets in flood vulnerable neighborhoods. So that means more resilience hubs, more solar benches, more green infrastructure installations, more combo installations with hubs, panels, lighting, weather stations, just getting more and more into more neighborhoods and more communities here in New Orleans to help these neighborhoods and these communities mitigate our frequent power outages and flooding issues here in the city. But definitely looking to build on all communities in New Orleans and making sure all communities have resilience assets, have a place to go, and have a resource when the need arrives. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Todd. If all of our panelists want to come up on the camera, we have a robust Q&A, lots of great questions. I've tried to kind of clump them together into specific buckets so that we can answer as many general topics as possible. But I encourage you to reach out if your question doesn't get answered, and I can forward it along to the appropriate participant. So, kick things off. Lots of questioning about permitting. Is there any permitting or zoning considerations that go into building these resources? And if so, what are they? How do you navigate them?
You want that one, Jeff?
The mobile one's not really, it's like
Yeah.
building a tiny home, you follow, when you build a tiny home, you actually follow RV rules, so, there's a different set of rules for mobile power, for automotive and all that. But the minute you go and make it permanent or plug it into buildings, the rules change a little bit. So, a lot of it depends on local codes. We explored I think there were some questions in there about interaction with the utility, and I think we haven't decided whether to try to connect it to the building here or not. But that is definitely something you want to check with the local utilities if you're going to permanently install it or leave it installed for long term. A lot of jurisdictions will have rules about installing a generator somewhere. They'll want you to install a ground rod, next to it and whatnot. If it's going to be there for a long time, you might have to register it. So I think it's very local as far as how that goes. And I think you can, either ask your favorite AI bot, to look into your local rules or just call the jurisdiction and ask them up front.
Have you?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, the smaller installations, we have not run into any permit issues. We're not connecting to the grid. They're all standalone systems. So we haven't had any issues there on the smaller installations. But like Jeff said, you check with your local rules and regulations if you plan on connecting to the grid.
Perfect. That's helpful. I was going to ask if any of the projects to date have had any issues coordinating with the permitting in the municipality. So that's great. Kind of in this similar vein, are there any specific fire suppression or like planning or efforts that have to go underway, and how do you plan for that? Is that kind of hand in hand with permitting and you check your own municipality?
I mean, I think there was a couple questions around fire suppression, but there was always one just around battery safety and other safety. I mean, you design these systems to not fault to begin with. So, you have OCPD, you have current protection, you have electrical protection, you have a cooling system in there to do climate control. And the devices themselves all have safety measures built into it. And on top of that, something like the Fortress batteries in here are LFP, lithium iron phosphate. So they're a safer technology anyway. It's a little different than the early lithium batteries that were like more like firecrackers than batteries. So it's a very different technology now. So your chances of failure are extremely low. And to be honest with you, if you're going to have a battery failure, you're not going to really do anything about it. The firefighters, everybody just scoot back and let it burn. So, you just avoid ever getting to that point. If this was um, a large commercial on-site in a place that was like, attached to permanent dwellings or something, you're going to have a very different set of fire requirements. And if it is being permanently installed, the rules for fire suppression and spacing and other things around batteries do get very specific. So you are back to permitting, if you're going to have it very permanently installed somewhere, you want to make sure you're meeting fire codes. And we've dealt with some very loose ones, areas like rural Mississippi that have no codes whatsoever, or no inspections on them. You're expected to follow code as a contractor, but you have other areas like Houston, Texas, where we had to do codes that I didn't even think they were issued yet from the NEC. They were so new in the code world. So you do have to check in locally on those.
Great. Nate, I think this is probably a question for you. In the Beehive model, who owns and maintains the equipment? And like kind of corresponding with that, who operates the bees in the event of an outage? Is it Footprint? Is it on the ground partners? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. We own the equipment, and then we work with partners that we train to deploy the equipment. We have a training program now with different levels. So the higher the level you are, the more complicated the equipment you can work with. So, because we're a staff of about 19, only, a quarter of us are on the team. I manage the tech team that that knows how to maintain and troubleshoot and wire stuff. So we're a small team. So we depend on and rely on partners that we've trained, and then the experts in the field that already exist, like Jeff and his team and other local solar contractors in the regions that we deploy to. There's a great network of solar installation companies and solar contractors in North Carolina, just with their growing solar industry there. So we've been fortunate to be able to utilize them to help us build this network out. And not only build the network out, but maintain the equipment that we've already built. Because there's stuff that always goes wrong with solar and batteries and electrical equipment. I was just going to touch on too, just the previous conversation about permitting. We have so we started a program recently here in New Orleans called our Transfer Switch for Resilience Hub program, and we got a small grant for that, where we're installing 5 transfer switches. You can go to Home Depot and get them to the Reliance transfer switches. Your 50 amp, 240, 120. That is behind the grid, behind the meter. But if you need to, what we end up learning is the first one we installed in our office here as a test one that we used to test equipment, and we didn't apply for a permit for that. Maybe I shouldn't make that public, but what we started learning, there is a lot of gray area, and most people don't apply for permits for these transfer switches. But if you're going to do electrical work on your house, each state is a little bit different. But New Orleans actually has quite a strict for permanent installation and work done on existing infrastructure. So now what we're doing is we are applying, and we're getting permits for all those transfer switches that we install, and we're also doing that same thing for that in North Carolina. Now it is behind the meter, so it's not selling power back to the grid. It's just offsetting current loads and backing up those essential circuits that we pre-identify before through an assessment, and load calculations before to say, which circuits does this building need to run when the power goes out. We can't run them all, but we can run these. And yeah, so that's a growing part of our program here. And I foresee that being a growing part of the Beehive network. So those permanent installations of transfer switches.
Yeah, here locally, the Beehive we have. So Groundwork does our program participants, myself and our staff. We are the deployers when there's an incident. The first V did its maiden voyage. What was it, Nate? In the tornado in Harvey knocked out several blocks of neighborhood in Harvey, Louisiana, and we were able to deploy the first B out there to help. That was kind of her maiden voyage out there. But in subsequent events out of here, Groundwork, our program participants would be the quote unquote emergency responders that get the Beehives out, and we continue to maintain them. Of course, consulting with Jeff, consulting with Nate on different issues as they arise. But here locally, we manage that deployment.
That's really helpful. And Nate, you touched on one of the other questions, which was, are there a way for these for the bees and the hive to generate revenue? So it doesn't sound like there's like a bidirectional capacity, or that you're participating in grid services, but that you can offset hive or stationary systems utility bill costs. How do you pay for the pre-development and development of these resources, and is there an economic model that continues the operation of them once they're up and running?
Yeah, that's another great question. We are exploring lots of different options. We've been fortunate enough to date to be able to fund the bees and the hives that we've built by grants. The most recent one I touched on in my presentation was a large grant, federal, from DOE through the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. And that is to build up 2 semi-permanent hives, each with between 5 to 10 bees. It was a little bit flexible. And then 25 permanent sites with permanent installations that we're designing and configuring to be able to easily charge a bee, but not sell back to the utility, the interconnection of that bee. Now, those permanent sites do have interconnection because they're permanent. For mobile assets and for mobile generators, it's the Wild West. But when it comes to like getting the utility on board, rolling up a solar trailer of different configurations with all different size equipment, and there's not standardized. It's an evolving process that we have not cracked yet, and we're hopefully going to be able to crack it at some point. But in terms of the revenue, generation. So there's blue skies and gray skies events. In the for the disaster speakers out there, blue skies are when a disaster is actively happening in the region where the assets are. Blue skies, or the gray skies is you're in rapid response mode, or midterm recovery where there's lots of power outages. The utility hasn't been able to get the lines back up. When we're in blue skies, we have done rentals to events like Bonnaroo, where we've used them. We've brought a number of these, and we use it as a training exercise also for our team and volunteers. Bonnaroo, for those who don't know, is a big music festival in the middle of a farm field in Tennessee. Over a week, 100,000 person town is basically set up. People are camping in the fields. There's big concerts, and needs lots of power. Now there's huge diesel generators that are brought in. They also have a great connection at different points, but we have a contract with them we've had a contract with them for the last 5 years to bring solar powered charging stations to charge people's phones and also to power a smaller stage and some refrigeration units at the nonprofit booth section for a food nonprofit. So we are able to generate revenue from events like that. And that is a model that we will continue to do in blue skies.
Yeah, for us, it's been an interesting, problem. Not, I shouldn't say problem, but we have our days, and there is downtime, as Nate said, blue sky time. But we've all been Nate and the Footprint Project crew. We've discussed this also. It's kind of caught between. You want your equipment to be working at peak during gray skies or outages, and it's weighing how much you use them outside of those, how much the maintenance costs will be to keep those running at an optimal rate. So when a power outage does happen, it's used for its original design. So we're still working through that. Would love to create more revenue by using them, and as nonprofits, additional revenue is always welcome, but it's balancing those and making sure that, hey, when the moment comes, we're prepared, the equipment is working at optimized rates, and we're ready to go.
Thanks. And I want to highlight, since we're coming to a close here, I'm going to ask one or two more questions, but for questions related to like cost or a case study, I had Zareen relink the case study that was published in the group chat. It's a nice way of getting like a picture of how much was spent and kind of the deep dive into how that was developed. But I did want to ask our panelists, are there any other like resources available to folks, whether that's a mobile array design and construction plans or solar alternatives design specs that are publicly available for folks to access to see how these are actually built? We have a little bit of that in the case study, but we got a couple of those questions. So I just wanted to double check if there's anything else anyone would like us to share, and we can put a link in the chat.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. We also, on our website, we have an open resource tool where there are some open designs. I think we have a solar trailer design on there. So I can send that link after the webinar here.
Yeah, I'll check with these folks and make sure they're good with sharing some of the plans that we have on these.
That's great. Thank you. And, we have 1 minute left. So I just wanted there's a couple random questions that I couldn't quite bucket into others. And one that came up a couple times, if there's any, if these trailers can be deployed during flooding, like if they can go through flooding or if there's wildfires, things like that.
I actually had was an issue that question came up in another kind of procedure, and I just replied back, basically, we find a way to get where we need to get. Not all the streets are flooded. Ida was a wind event, so none of the streets were flooded. They're all pretty heavy duty trailers. They sit up pretty high. So it's just being strategic. They're not waterproof, but it's really being strategic, knowing the area that you're working in, knowing how to get to different, 4 or 5 different ways to get to the same place. but really understanding the site conditions that are out there.
Yeah, the the trailers themselves, the charging the solar trailer is pretty far off the ground. You probably have 3 feet of water before you have to worry about that one. Worry about your vehicle first. And then the other one, I think the batteries are the lowest point in there, and they're probably like 18 to 24 inches off of street level. So, 12 to 16, 12 to 18 inches of water, you probably could go through without serious safety concerns, but you're going to get water inside of it. The trailers, if you've got anything else in there. But that would probably be the most I'd recommend.
Well, thank you everyone so much. We had a great Q&A. Panelists, thank you for joining us. I have a feeling we'll be doing another one of these webinars sooner than later. If you have a question that we didn't get to or something pops up later on, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll make sure to share it with everyone here. And yeah, thank you all for joining. This was great. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you
Thanks for
all.
having us.
Thank you.